I'm Maggie, and if you don't know me, I'm a former pre-med, a native Arizonan, and I'm currently living in San Francisco working as a chief of staff at a startup. I want to make this video because when I was 18 and deciding where to go to college, I had a few really good opportunities where I could go on a full ride to an in-state school, or I had also gotten into a few Ivy Leagues, including my dream school at the time, Yale. And when I was making this decision, I had trawled through a lot of forums and read a lot of Reddit threads, and ultimately a lot of them came down to, well, do you value financial independence, or do you want the network and the prestige and the connections? Having gone through college, and now that I'm a few years out and have been working, I wanted to talk about the long-term effects that my decision as a teenager created. A little about me: when I was 18, I had just graduated a public high school, and this was a high school that was technically public, but you did have to take a test to get into, so it was filled with a lot of high achievers and ambitious students. And I think similar to a lot of my peers, I was anxious, depressed, stressed, and had a bit of a strained relationship with my parents as well. And for me, I really valued the freedom to make my own decisions, what I wanted to study, where I wanted to go, and I was honestly a little bit burnt out from a very rigorous academic curriculum. There's this famous scholarship in Arizona called the Flynn that I think is valued at $120,000. It might be more now, but it basically covers 4 years of schooling, it covers study abroad, and it provides a lot of support and alumni in this network, and it's offered to 20 high school seniors every year. So I was awarded that, and when I was balancing the Flynn and going to an in-state school, so ASU, U of A, or NAU, I was balancing that versus going to Yale, essentially, and my family did not qualify for any significant form of financial aid, so I knew that if I had gone there, my parents would have supported me, and they definitely would have been really happy too. But I think having some more traditional Asian parents, they definitely have their own opinions on what they think I should study and how I should act or behave, and to me that was very unappealing. I think also because our relationship was a bit strained, so I didn't really want them having such a heavy influence on how I lived my life. So I ultimately chose to go to ASU, one being I really wanted the financial independence, and two, I was still pre-med at the time and I had planned to go to medical school. So if you're planning on going to grad school, it's going to be expensive, and for me, medical school was also a large financial burden, and I thought, well, if I want to go to a prestigious school, I might as well go grad school, and I can save the money doing my undergrad. So ultimately, that's how I made that decision. The advantages of going in school, in-state, is that, you know, being on a full ride, it'll probably be attached to some sort of scholarship that is well known in your state, and it'll be well known in the community. So going into college, it will open a lot of doors for you. You know, for me, being a Flynn Scholar meant that I could get into the lab that I wanted as a freshman, I could get into a lot of extracurriculars, and I didn't have to try super hard to get other scholarships or opportunities, because just having Flynn attached on my resume or in my emails spoke a lot about sort of the caliber of student that they were expecting, and so that part was really nice. Whereas if you go to an Ivy League, you know, everybody there's ambitious, everybody there has Princeton or Harvard or Yale attached to the email, so you're still another fish in the sea, and you're gonna have to work just as hard to get these opportunities, and you'll be competing with other incredible peers. And at these other universities, clubs and extracurriculars also require interviews, so it's just much harder to get. So I was really fortunate that I think once you have the scholarship attached to your name at an in-state school, a lot of things that you want to do will be readily available to you. Another thing about going to a private school that has a large endowment or has a lot of notable alumni is that the quality of opportunities you get in college might be a little bit higher due to just more connections to these big companies or these interesting opportunities or interesting people. But at the same time, you're also competing with, you know, your fellow peers and your fellow classmates. So kind of pros and cons, whereas going to in-state, maybe the opportunities are a little bit less sexy, but they're easy to get and there's still really good opportunities out there. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to land a like very prestigious job. Lots of ASU alum go to McKinsey or Goldman, they go into banking or consulting, all these things. So it's not about where you go to school, and it is a little bit harder to get an interview, but don't feel like if you choose to go in-state, you're not going to be able to land these roles, because it's definitely possible and it's not even rare. Talking about making friends in college, I think this is always difficult no matter where you're at. And for me, when I went to ASU, it was a little tougher to find my friends because, one, it's a huge university. It's the largest public university in the United States, and it just means that there is a wide range of people as well. And for me to find other students who were, you know, working a lot or studying a lot and really ambitious, it did take a lot of time. And I'd say even in college, I didn't find a set friend group ever, really. I think I had certain friends that I do like extra like outdoor things with, or other friends that I travel with, and then I have another group of friends where maybe we go out and have fun, and then there's other friends who we study together and take classes together. And so you sort of find pockets of friends that fulfill different aspects of yourself, but I think it was difficult to find people who really resembled you and had the same values, whereas maybe if you went to a smaller private school, it's sort of already pre-screened out when they're doing applications, and you'll just find many people with similar values and a similar background to you. So I think there's pros and cons. I also like that at ASU, you know, we had a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds, a lot of people pursuing different things, creative things, but I think it was just harder to find people who wanted that academic rigor that I was pursuing. From the financial side, I have been fully financially independent since I was 18, since I went to college, and I'd say almost 95% of this was due to these scholarships, where I didn't have to worry about housing, I didn't have to worry about paying tuition or having extra money left over to I don't know, buy clothes or buy kind of like daily things that are just nice to have. I also had study abroad paid for, and during college I also worked, so I got paid for my research, and I also tutored all throughout. And because of all these things, I was able to buy a car on my own. I was able to travel to Japan and India and Mexico and all over the United States, fully funded by myself, and that was really important to me. And even now, like, I'm 24 now, and not having any student debt has been huge because I was able to move during the pandemic, and I actually recently bought 2 houses in the past year, which has been super huge. And I think a big part of that was because when I was 18, I chose to have college fully paid for. And if you chose to go to private school, obviously, unless your parents are in a situation where they're able to fully cover it at no significant burden, I think many students will need to take on student loans, and that will affect how your finances look in the future. So sort of up to you. I think everyone's situation is different, but for me, it's been really nice having a lot of disposable income and being able to sort of make long-term investments. Okay, so that was how going in-state will affect you during college. And now I want to talk a little bit about kind of the long-term effects of choosing to go in-state versus like a more prestigious private university post-graduation. So I graduated during the pandemic, and I was pre-med before, and I realized I really disliked the American healthcare system and wasn't fully ready to commit the next 10-12 years of my life to medical school. So I chose to go into tech, and a lot of friends who I had gone to school with had also gone into tech, so I was able to reach out to them and land a few internships and a few jobs in this tech world. And after moving to San Francisco, you realize that so many smart people gravitate towards tech and towards the Bay Area because it's a place where many of the greatest minds in the world like to congregate. And here, you know, Ivy Leaguers are kind of a dime a dozen. There's a lot of people who have gone to fancy schools. There's a lot of Olympians. There's a lot of people who have done awesome things, and it's really easy to get lost in kind of all these credentials and these like big names. And I will say that having a big name on your resume or on your LinkedIn is like having pretty privilege, where it really helps you get your foot in the door. It helps you make that initial connection. People might be more willing to entertain a conversation with you, but it does not keep you there, because ultimately it's how smart you are, it's how hard you work, and it's your ability to hustle and be scrappy that's going to make the difference. On my resume, and although that might not be the most flashy title, I decided to lean on my experiences and my interviewing skills to land a lot of these jobs. And I will say that you will have to work a little bit harder to get your foot in the door if you don't have a big name on your resume. And I think that's just the reality of it, where you really need to have strong experiences, you need to have strong stories. But there's a Chinese saying where 是金子就会发光, which means if it's gold, it will shine. And I truly believe that. I'm working in a position where I'm working in similar positions as people who went to, you know, prestigious colleges, and there are also many ASU students who went on to go to grad school at MIT or Columbia or Stanford, or they work at Google now or Netflix or Plaid, and so it's really not about where you went to school, but it's about you as a person. And I think ultimately it's like, what do you value more? Like, do you value financial independence and having that freedom to buy whatever you want or travel, or do you value easy built-in connections, a slight boost up in networking, and having, I guess, that prestige on your resume? I think both are really valuable, and as you explore jobs, you're going to feel that a little bit, where you know, even if you have the same experiences as someone who went to Princeton, they might get a little bit of a leg up because of that name. And I think that's just how it is. And I've had people who will disregard me initially because I didn't go to the same school as they did, but it's never a long-term thing. I think you can always overcome first impressions, although they do matter. And I would say I don't regret going to ASU or taking the Flynn Scholarship. It's definitely helped me become so much more independent. It's helped me have a better relationship with my parents because we're not financially entangled. But I will say that sometimes I do wonder, you know, when I meet new people, I wonder, like, oh, are they thinking less of me because I didn't go to, you know, an Ivy League or something like that. And because it does happen, but ultimately at the end of the day, your school and whatever kind of signaling that you have is going to matter less and less as you get older, because then your experiences are going to speak for themselves. If you're a fresh grad out of college, you don't have much, I guess, like street cred or experience to back you up. So people are going to rely on scholarships or your school as signals as to the kind of person you are, the kind of employee you are. But you know, a few years in, that stuff is not going to matter. So it's really up to you. I think either way, you can't go wrong. I struggled with this decision a lot when I was 18, so definitely want to be here to help out and provide as much insight as I can. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching.